Hello Life Science students, this is your education lesson on DNA connections. So as I mentioned in class, you've probably heard of the word DNA, you've probably heard the word gene, you've probably heard the word chromosome, but how are they all connected and what are they? That's what this lesson is about. It's going to be using Chapter 7, Section 1 in your textbook, so please pause the video right now and go and get your textbook and open to Chapter 7, Section 1, page 208. Okay, so in your science folders, you've been given a Cornell Notes page. I recommend that you turn it sideways like this and do all of the drawing in this part, kind of landscape. Even better, if you wanted to actually just flip this paper over so you have the whole backside to write this, this is going to be a pretty big drawing that we're going to make, and you don't want to have the details too tiny. Alright, so here we are on page 208 in your textbook. What does DNA look like? Well, the key concept for this section is that the structure of DNA is a double helix, which is shaped like a twisted ladder, and that's what we're going to draw in a little bit. The study of heredity helps scientists understand how genetic information is transferred from parents to offspring. But what is genetic information made of, and how does it work? Inherited characteristics are determined by genes, and genes are passed from one generation to the next. Genes are found on chromosomes, which are structures located in the nucleus of cells. Chromosomes are made of protein and DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA is the genetic material of living things. It determines inherited characteristics. So, what does DNA look like? Okay, let's take a look at this paragraph. So, we have inherited characteristics are determined by genes. Okay, so there's genes. Genes are found on chromosomes. There's another word, which are structures located in the nucleus of cells. Chromosomes are made of protein and DNA. Okay, so you see how that works? We have genes. Genes are found on chromosomes. Chromosomes are made of protein and DNA. So right there we have one of the main connections that you're going to be learning about in this unit. Okay, let's go on to the next paragraph. The pieces of the puzzle. Scientists knew the material that makes up genes must be able to do two things. First, it must be able to give instructions for building and maintaining the cells. Second, it must be able to be copied each time a cell divides so that each cell contains identical genes. The structure of DNA allows for these two functions to occur. So this second one, this is what the second part of our unit focuses on. This is cell division. The cell must be able to divide and have identical copies in order for you to be able to be you, or any other organism on the planet to stay that organism. Alright, so a quick note about nucleotides. We won't talk too much about nucleotides, that the actual word, but there's 4 subunits of DNA that you're going to need to know. DNA is made of subunits called nucleotides. A nucleotide consists of a sugar, a phosphate, and a base. Okay? The nucleotides are identical except for the base. The 4 bases are adenine, say that with me, adenine, one more time, adenine, thymine, say that, thymine, and guanine, okay, say that, guanine, and cytosine, say that, cytosine, okay. Each base has a different shape, and scientists often refer to a base by the first letter of the base. So, A goes with adenine, T goes with thymine, G goes with guanine, and C goes with cytosine. Okay? Figure 1 shows models of the 4 nucleotides. Okay, here's where you can get a little bit of bonus to make sure that you actually have your textbook out on your table. You need to draw one of the 4 bases in the top right corner of your Cornell notes. You'll get some bonus points for that. Make sure that you're watching the video. Alright, so that's it for our reading. Now, this next section, we're just going to be doing quite a bit of drawing. We're going to take up this whole page, and we're going to be drawing some text as well. We're going to go all the way from a cell on one side to an individual strand of DNA on the other. So in the bottom left corner, just draw a cell. You know what? I want to make it this color, and you'll see why later. Alright, and then the nucleus I'm going to draw a little bit bigger than normal just so that it matches. And then I'll draw maybe, a mitochondria and maybe some endoplasmic reticuli and maybe a vacuole over here. Anyway, just so that you recognize it as a cell. And then on the inside of the nucleus is all the DNA. Once the cell is getting ready to divide, it chunks itself into chromosomes, and then it copies itself. So you're going to end up with chromosomes that kind of look like this. They look like X's. Basically, they're like 2 V's that are stuck together in the middle. And we'll talk more about what those structures are that are stuck in the middle there. So now if we take one of these chromosomes and enlarge it, okay, so that it looks more like this. Okay, that is a chromosome. Okay, so first, let's write down a couple of definitions. First is number 1. A human cell contains 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs of chromosomes that are then copied and then distributed equally in the 2 new cells. So write down that next to the cell. And number 2, a chromosome is made of protein and DNA. Now, within this chromosome is all of the DNA is tightly coiled, bunch of spirally little coils, and then we're going to stretch it out a little bit. And so this is one individual loop right here of DNA. So number 3 for you to write down in your notes is that each chromosome contains a large amount of DNA. And number 4 is just to show this single loop of DNA, and then this is what we're going to enlarge over on the right-hand side. Now, this next drawing is tricky. Okay, I had to practice it several times. So we're going to basically blow this up, enlarge it, draw a single wavy line, and then next to it, draw a line that gets progressively wider as you go down. And then come back up to the top and draw 2 lines to finish that loop. And then draw these 2 pretty far out here, because we're going to need to draw some things on the inside. And then these two will continue way down here like this. You can pause it if you need to right here to get that sort of just right. So number 5 is to say the shape of this ladder. DNA strands are shaped like a twisted ladder called a double helix. Now remember in the reading in the book, okay, you should hopefully still have that out, okay? The nucleotides are made of a sugar, a phosphate, and a base, okay? So what we have here on the outsides that we've drawn so far in this ladder are the sugar and phosphates. The bases are like the rungs of the ladder that go across. So I'm going to use some colors, and I highly recommend that you use colors too, to draw some kind of like a puzzle piece that goes across here with some matching pieces across there, and then maybe use a green shape here and purple shape here. Oh, that's not very good. Let's try that again. All right, and then we'll fill in some letters and things there. And then down below, let's see. So now here's where we're going to get a little bit more detail. So I'll draw a purple one on this side. It goes like this. And then the green one fits in there like this. See, they're like puzzle pieces that fit together. And I'll draw a red one on this side. And then this puzzle piece goes the opposite way like that. And then these, remember, these have letters. I go back here, we've got the adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. So I'm going to use, let's say the purple one is the A, and the green one is the T, and then we'll say the yellow one is the C, and the red one is the G. And you will learn that A always goes with T, or T always goes with A, and C always goes with G, or G always goes with C. Okay? Okay, so number 6 on our notes is talking about the base pairs. So the steps of the ladder, the rungs that go across the ladder, are the matching base pairs, with adenine always going with thymine, and cytosine always going with guanine. Notice at the top here, and the first one here, I have the red one on the left, and down here I have the red one on the right. You can do that. Okay, they can switch places like that. Okay, and the same thing, I switch the purple and the green ones. And you can do that too. You can have repeating ones. You know, you could have CG and then right underneath it have another CG. I think I'll do that actually. We're gonna put another CG under here. Why not? You can do whatever you want as long as you keep the base pairs together correctly. Okay, now, so far we've talked about what a chromosome is. Okay, a chromosome is, contains a large amount of DNA. It's made of protein and DNA. It's tightly coiled DNA, and then when you stretch it out, then you get this DNA helix. Well, so far we haven't talked about gene. Where's gene in all of this? Okay, so a gene is just a particular chunk of DNA. So say this chunk right here, okay, that might be the code for one particular gene, maybe your eye color or your hair color or your height or your shoe size. So that's number 7. A gene is a section of DNA that gives instructions for a particular trait. Like I said, eye color, hair color, finger length, skin color, all kinds of things. Now the last part we're going to talk about are the phosphates and the sugars. So we're just going to label a few of them in here. I'm just going to use a couple of different shapes to show that they're different but linked. And then over here, and they go all the way up the sides. So let's say that the circles are the P's, the phosphates, and let's say that the houses are the sugars, the phosphate, or sugars. So P's for phosphates, and S for the sugars. And then the bases are then connected off of the sugars. Oh, lunchtime. This one's going to be a really long one. That's all right. And so that's the last part of our notes. Number 8. The sides of the ladder are made of sugar and phosphate. Sugar, you know, is a chemical like C6H12O6, and phosphate is just another chemical. It's PO4, a phosphorus atom and 4 oxygens, but don't worry about memorizing that. So for your last step, remember that you need to have 3 questions that you write on this side of the Cornell notes. You have 3 different options for different question types. You can write a question that would be a good quiz question, and don't write just, you know, like, what is a chromosome? You know, try to make it a substantive question. You can also have a question that's something that you're unsure about in the notes, something that's still not clear that you're curious about, or you could do something that's a follow-up question. Something that the notes doesn't address, but something that maybe you've heard about in the news, or something that you just wonder about this. You can do, all 3 of your questions can be option 1. All 3 of your questions could be option 2. All 3 of your questions could be option 3, or you can mix it up. Okay? But remember to have both the drawing and the questions done by the due date. And I'll see you in class.